Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire and Candace Owens, also of the Daily Wire, but you wouldn't know it. By the way, these two are fighting with each other, have been fighting online and have been exchanging words. Now, I first heard about this when Tucker Carlson had Candace Owens on his show, and they talked about it. And there they showed a clip of Ben Shapiro, I think in a clip where he didn't know he was being filmed, a clip of him dissing Candace Owens. So I want to show that same clip to you now so that you will have a little bit of the context.
Yes, the question was about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this has been disgraceful. Without a doubt, I think it's disgraceful. I think she's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that her faux sophistication on these particular issues has been ridiculous. It's not faux sophistication, it's ridiculous. Everybody can see the moves that she's making and the things that she's saying, and I find them disreputable.
All right, so I know that that's kind of hard to hear, but essentially Ben Shapiro called his co-worker unsophisticated and despicable and disgraceful is what he said. So suffice to say, I understand that Ben is very emotionally involved and should be, right, for obvious reasons about what's going on in Israel and what's taking place in Gaza. And Candace has had some things to say about that. Now, I think he's responding generally to things that Candace has said on her show, but I also think he's responding specifically to what she has said on X. And I want to show that to you now on the screen. So this is what she said. "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when men shall revile you and persecute you and shall say all manner of evil against you, falsely for my name's sake. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money." Now, in response to that, Ben Shapiro said this to Candace. "Candace, if you feel that taking money from the Daily Wire somehow comes between you and God, by all means quit." So I think the reason Ben got so mad about this, and there's some insinuation here, but I'm going to be honest with you and say that you can make up your own mind about what you think is really going on or what Candace meant by her original X comments. But I'm going to tell you, here's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like when she says, "Blessed are the peacemakers," what she means is that if you're calling for war in Gaza, that you don't want peace, you really just want war, and you're kind of a warmonger, and there may be a reason that you want that war. And then she goes on at the end of her X post to say, you cannot serve both God and money. Now, Ben seems to think she's saying that she's not going to be a part of the Daily Wire as long as the Daily Wire, or she has a problem with the Daily Wire and those on the Daily Wire, Ben in particular, kind of endorsing what's going on in Gaza and endorsing Israel's fight back against Palestine. And she seems to be saying that, and this is kind of like the fair way of looking at it. I'll tell you what I actually think she may be saying. The fair way of looking at it is that she is saying that I find it convicting to my conscience to take money from a company where the people that are leading this company, Ben in particular, are kind of calling for war like this because I'm pregnant right now and there's babies right now in Gaza who are being killed, right? That's a fair enough statement, I would say, but it's a little morally blind, in my opinion, simply because there's a difference in kind between what Hamas did to Israel and what Israel now is trying to do in response to Hamas. Suffice to say, that seems to be the fairest implication I can make with what Candace actually means by her post. Now, there might be another kind of more villainous take on this, and that is, blessed are the peacemakers. So, Ben, you're not a peacemaker, and the only reason you're not is that there's Jewish money involved, and you're Jewish, but also you're taking money from Jews who support your show and want you to support this war. Now, I think that is a very underhanded kind of ad hominem attack to add to the things that Candace has already said on her show that don't really support Israel. But here's the issue, is that Candace doesn't have to support Israel. I think the fact that they're having a public disagreement is not really a sign of weakness. It means that they're open to discourse. And I love the fact that Daily Wire really doesn't censor its hosts. I mean, it lets a Matt Walsh go off the handle on all sorts of things. And then Candace as well, and Ben as well. However, here's where I do think that there is some need for some clarity on this issue. So I believe that they should have disagreement in the open almost always. However, I think they should be fighting with each other behind closed doors. So in other words, I think they should disagree publicly, but they should fight amongst themselves privately. Now, before I get into where I think that dichotomy comes from and why I think that's a good paradigm, let me just say that right there you see a difference between disagreement and division, right? Christians get this wrong all the time. Division is far different than disagreement. Disagreement is healthy, it's good, it's the only way to truly get beyond the personal and get to the rational. Now, when you get divisive, it is because you're almost always being personal. You're making it about the person and you're attacking their character, you're attacking who they are, you're attacking their belief system, but you're not actually making a rational argument. That's when division typically gets sown, but disagreement is far different. And Christians need to get a bigger appetite for disagreement so that we can hash out issues in the most healthy manner possibly. Disagreement is truly good. But division comes in when you fight each other, throw out ad hominem attacks at each other, and you do so without speaking to each other directly. Now, if we didn't live in a society with moral values, then why would we need to do this? So let's just say for a moment that we kind of want to push aside the fact that Christianity is a prominent force in the West and dictates much of our civil discourse on a regular basis on a good day, or should, I would argue. Let's just push aside any objective moral values, and let's say the moral relativist, the postmodernist, the neo-Marxist is right. Well, then you do whatever you want to. You can disagree, you can attack somebody, you can call them names, you can do whatever you want to. It's only when you insert a Christian worldview that then you start having some ethics in the way that you disagree with each other. Now, by the way, this is where I think Ben is wrong, and Candace has handled herself a little bit better than Ben in this situation. And I would almost bet that after the break of Thanksgiving, or maybe even before, Ben will come out and say something about this, or maybe just personally talk to Candace, maybe even apologize, because I think he will realize that he made a misstep here. But perhaps the reason he made a misstep here is because Ben consistently makes a misstep in this one area. He makes a misstep when it comes to Jesus. Ben has gone on record being a brilliant man, and I almost hate to say this because I agree with him so much. But one of the glaring blind spots for Ben Shapiro is his Judaism and how it has kept him from really entering into and engaging the subject as to whether or not Jesus is who he says he is, whether or not he is the Jewish Messiah. He's always kind of leaned back on his religion and just said, well, we don't believe that. Well, have you investigated the claims of the Messiah? Have you investigated the claims of the Old Testament and how they intersect with the New Testament? Have you investigated the claim, as Jordan Peterson says, that the Bible is the most hyperlinked text in the history of the world? So the New Testament refers to the Old, and the Old even alludes to the New. And so investigating that, I think, would be very beneficial for Ben. And if he did, he might find a very, I think, beneficial way to handle personal disagreements. Because I think his blind spot for Jesus has also blinded him in ways where he needs to handle his personal disagreements in a very different way. Because Jesus actually gives us a model for what these kind of personal disagreements look like. And he says this: if your brother has an offense against you, or has done something to offend you, then you go to that individual privately and you talk about that with them directly. And as of yet, we don't really see that that has happened, at least as of the filming of this podcast. Now, perhaps if Ben didn't have a blind spot where Jesus is concerned, he could let the teachings of Christ kind of enter into his psyche a little bit more, and he would have handled himself a little bit better here. But as a founder of the Daily Wire, as not necessarily Candace's boss, but as certainly somebody who is a pivotal figure in that business, the most pivotal figure in that business, I would say that it really, really matters how Ben handles this. I would say it matters for the sake of the conservative movement, because we have been great at destroying each other rather than working together. And it would be great if these guys could show us what it looks like to really disagree and work together in a little bit healthier manner. But more importantly, I can't help but and maybe this is a little bit sympathetic, but I can't help but also say that it would also be better for their personal relationship and the way Ben and Candace get together, and the way Ben and Candace relate to each other. And then I would also argue too, the Jesus quotient here, that if Ben really took Jesus's words seriously, it might change the way that he handles these kind of things in the future.
So you just got done watching a small excerpt of a much larger episode. You can find the link to that full episode down below in the description of this video. So you definitely want to check that out, because if you like that clip, you'll like the much larger episode. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that little bell to be notified when great new episodes of Indie Thinker come your way. Thanks for watching.